Hi there, and welcome to the Curious Collective podcast, conversations designed for the veteran and first responder community to bring awareness to those holistic practices that help us live our best life. So tap into the wisdom and knowledge of our guests to heal, transform, and live as your true soulful self. Now, listeners, with us today, we have the amazing Jason Frost, aka Frosty, who's coming to us all the way from
Sunny Wagga.
Johnny Wagga. He has quite a story to share with us. The way I met Frosty was through a beautiful joint friend, Beck, and then started following him on socials, has started an amazing space down in Wagga called Patria, which I'm sure we will hear a bit about. So please introduce yourself and what it is that you're doing in the world right now.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate. So, yeah, I'm Frosty. I served 16 years in the army and was medically discharged back in around 2015. Had a bit of a rough trot getting out, but found solace with other veterans that I connected with in the region once I got down here. And then through those networks and kind of working with people outside of our region as well, and even overseas, we started to kind of fill the gaps on the services that we needed. And that kind of started with the Defence Shed. So I'm the Vice President of the Defence Shed in Wagga, which is an Australian organisation based off the Australian Men's Shed Association model. And we kicked that off to be able to start getting courses and trainings through TAFE New South Wales originally for veterans and first responders. And as that grew, we kind of identified greater needs for the kind of gaps in services, very heavily focused on the lack of medical services, specifically in the region. And as we're looking for a permanent location for the shed, we realized we really needed kind of further supports. And we actually were gifted the opportunity to purchase the Carmelite Monastery, which was a monastery that had been running in Wagga since the Vietnam era, really. And then post then, the sisters were looking after the place for a long time. They couldn't look after it anymore, so they wanted to sell it to us to continue their kind of community service. And we saw the ability to then draw in some of the resources that we needed in the community. And we went to the public, raised the funds, and now I'm on the board for the Pro Patria Centre. And we've finally got our first little chunk of federal funding down here in Wagga too,
Nice.
as part of the DVA rollout. And we've been able to build pretty much a permanent defence shed facilities on site that's state of the art, that focuses on 3D printing, computer aided design, metalworking, and woodworking. We got the team out there at the moment kitting it out, so we'll be up and running this year to be able to kind of deliver some services. And then beyond that, with the centre, we've pulled in medical services, specifically a lot of forward-thinking psychiatric services and other kind of holistic modalities, all clinically researched, all accepted under the Department of Veteran Affairs, which is very important for our funding. And then in that, we've actually signed an MOU with our local university down here, which is Charles Sturt. And we're now working with the researchers there to bring in some of that missing Australian evidence on a lot of these new modalities that we've got access to. So things are starting to get pretty busy, but we're definitely moving in the right direction this year. So very exciting.
There's so much there that I want to unpack with you. Firstly, though, Pro Patria, where does the name come from? How did you come up with that?
So we didn't come up with the name. Pro Patria is Latin for one's country. And it's funny, the history in Wagga, Ashmont, and I mean, every soldier's gone through Wagga at some point for initial training out at Kapuka. And again, the home of the soldier, Ashmont was the Marry Patch during World War II, and Ashmont's just on the outskirts of town.
Yeah.
Monastery is located in Ashmont. So the monastery was built post-Vietnam for returned service personnel. And the name's actually written on the side of the building with Army, Navy, Air Force, and nursing symbolised there. So again, that Pro Patria was already on the building. So when we took over, we kind of adopted that name. And I know it's hard to say, but it's kind of easy when you think of where it comes from. But Patria meaning patriot and pro meaning for. So for Australia's own and things like that. So we've
I
extended.
actually love it. It's actually worked out really well, hasn't it?
Nearly meant to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the things that you're doing there out of the space already, I know it's moving in a great direction. It's going to be so much more, but like you're kind of meeting all of the basic, human needs of significance, connection, purpose. There's so much there that people can access. I love it. And is that what kind of keeps you involved and loving it?
Yeah, I mean, survival is what keeps me involved and loving it because I'm still suffering from my own injuries, and we've got a lot of modalities now that helps, but I see a lot of people that don't have access to the same services that I do, and I'm supporting a lot of people in our wider community. I think we've got 80 members, over 90 members now of the Shed, and that's in the last 6 months that have either rejoined up or joined up. And out of that population, the majority of them that are ex-defence or first responder are on a cocktail of medications. There's a handful that are still working, but the ones who have the capacity to volunteer mostly are unable to even leave their house at times because they do not have the medical services they need. So for us to build this up, it's been a pretty big effort from volunteers and everything else. But we've got to the point now where we're sustainable, which is great, but we still need those further kind of fundings to come in. We still need to start delivering more services directly for the personnel in the community. And that's why the Shed and this has grown kind of side by side, but one can't exist without the other. That's what's kind of led us down to this pathway of bringing something that's holistic, that does kind of meet these different avenues.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Yeah. That piece there with the running alongside each other is such a gift as well, because you've got that hands-on stuff, but then you're bringing in those extra modalities and things to support it. So is there like a big awareness sort of education piece that goes together with as people are showing up for maybe face-to-face stuff of what is out there?
No, we're absolutely beginning to build that now. So we've actually just put together our kind of media team, so we can start providing access to information on some of the things that are available, because it's very hard at the moment. And we've been running our website now for a couple of years. We've got a whole page of providers, but again, when you're looking at these modalities and these providers, it's overwhelming. It's very hard to find where to go and what's going to suit and everything else. So one of our jobs is to kind of demystify a lot of that and kind of educate on, through our medical providers and our researchers and that, we can now take some of their information that they have, convert it to kind of plain English speak so you and I can understand it, and then give that to people so then they've got better options and better understanding of what they're actually kind of walking into. So again, we're in the early stages of getting that out. I was just saying, I was up in Brizzy last weekend at a conference where we're talking to a lot of the Australia's lead researchers in a lot of these new fields. And we're speaking to the Israelis and the Americans who are doing some amazing stuff. And now, I mean, a lot of these American universities have actually offered for us to send our guys over there and receive some of their treatments and everything. So, but we can't do this without our universities here kind of linking into that too. So we're working on that.
Australia, you can do it.
Absolutely. No, and we should be on the cutting edge of a lot of this stuff too, because we're quite uniquely placed over here. And even the fact that we've got this place up and running in a small town like Wagga is kind of testament to how well the community supports the needs for this, because it's not just us. I mean, it's not just us or the first responders that need kind of better awareness on these things. It's the wider community.
Yeah,
and we're
absolutely.
seeing this in the wider community here. We've got a crisis for mental health. The doctors are overworked, the hospitals are overworked. And again, what we're looking at in the bigger picture is self-agency as well. So the more tools that you've got to be able to activate your own kind of things and work within our own communities, I think it puts the onus back on us to help ourselves improve.
Yes, you've said it. So this ties beautifully back into the theme of this whole podcast, which is being curious, coming back into your body, self-resourcing, learning and understanding how your body works in order to then heal yourself. And all these external modalities are fantastic, but really ultimately at the end of the day, it's you learning about yourself that actually moves the needle. These, extra modalities, whether it be plant medicine, sound healing, kinesiology, yoga, all the things, they are facilitating us to self-resource and learn more about ourselves. So I think it's fantastic. And to be in Wagga and have 90 people like as members, that blows my mind.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, we even knew this back in the early days when we first started working with our local sub branch. We raised New South Wales' first contemporary vets committee, and we were pulling in over 70 people a month, all of our contemporaries, and that was just military or ex-military at that point.
Yeah.
But it was really the other veterans that I worked with down here, and we had one of the lads who'd been through over 13 IED blasts, so he had some severe concussion traumas that had reported as some pretty severe, like TBI, and he was one of the first TBI cases that I'd actually kind of interacted with, and ended up supporting him through a lot of his journey, but learning a lot about his journey through receiving hyperbaric medicine, and using nutrition, using things like medicinal cannabis to be able to re-regulate and literally, and this is going to sound crazy, but rebuild neural pathways in his brain and rebuild blood supply to those areas, to the point now that he's able to function a lot better now from those modalities. And then through that, not even understanding my own injuries at the time, because again, I was diagnosed as PTSD when I got out. I was diagnosed with chronic pain. I was peeled up through the eyeballs until the point I was having seizures. I was unable to look after myself. And even then, I was just thinking that I was the problem. So what's the best solution when you are the problem? When you're convinced you're obviously going to go down some pretty nasty pathways. And it took me to hit those points until I kind of reached out further. And again, thanks to the centre and thanks to the people that we've got working with us, I actually got access to neurofeedback brain scans in 2021, which showed massive concussion trauma on the left-hand side of my brain. Frontal lobe was fried and my hippocampus was on fire, which again, for me,
fascinating.
actually being able to see that was a game changer for me, whereas before then it was all in my head. And how do you get that out when you can't even use the language, the English words to explain what's happening?
Yeah, absolutely. And that whole process of that understanding where you're at first, it's before you can actually move forward from that, is huge. But most people and most of the people that I'm supporting up here in this area, they don't know where they're at. They don't know how they feel. They don't know what's going on in the physical body. They've just been relying on what a medical professional has been telling them, labeling themselves with all these things, taking the pills they've been told to a point where they lose themselves. So it's like, how do I have this, journey of reclamation where I actually try and crawl and piece myself back together in order to know where I'm at, and then lay those foundations that you're now educating people in, helping them move forward from that once they've started. There's an integration piece that's super important as well. I don't know if you want to talk into that from your perspective, having now been through and you're on your path. Is that integrating what you learn along the way?
It is. It's difficult because there's a lot of stigma that comes obviously around mental health itself, and then brain injuries. And then once we're using modalities like medicinal cannabis, there's a lot of stigma on that as well. So we're already isolating in ourselves to try and go down these pathways. And I've heard other people say it, and I've thought it off for myself. It feels like I'm cheating in a way, because I'm not able to now access modalities that are incredibly beneficial, while I'm there seeing other guys that I can't actually say that to them without getting possibly myself or other people in trouble, because I'm not a doctor. And this is where we've got to tread that fine line of awareness and education without kind of going too risky and really kind of putting other people at risk. But a lot of people say, the meds, they don't work for everyone. And again, I'm not talking about the people that they work for. I'm talking about the high majority of people that I'm experiencing that they're not working for, and that they're literally ripping their lives away. I've got a gentleman down here that was 40 years in the army, worked artillery for most of his career. He's married to a military lass as well. She's an ex-warrant officer. He was diagnosed with what they called complex PTSD when he got out. They didn't know what had happened for him to get to that point, but he had the symptoms of that. And without even doing neurological brain scans, without looking at his organ, again, a long time in artillery, that dude's been around incredible concussion blasts, sustained.
Yeah.
And we've watched him deteriorate over the 2 years while he took the cocktail of pharmaceuticals, to the point now we're trying to keep him out of the dementia ward.
Yeah,
and his partner's tried to commit suicide a number of times. And again, I go down there and I'm like, mate, got to start maybe looking at some other things. And he drills me. He's like, Frosty, I'm doing what the doctors are saying. And again, there's no go at him, because he's literally doing what the doctors are saying, because they haven't even kind of scratched the surface on what these traumatic brain injuries are. So we're still kind of stuck in this archaic mode where we're the ones on the ground that are trying to fight to get these guys the right access to treatment without being able to talk about it openly. So
Yeah.
it's quite a complex situation.
It really is. And I guess what I'm saying is, regardless of what that other modality is, it's just about choosing yourself and going, the human body is a freaking amazing thing. How can I tap into its healing powers? How can I activate my DNA to support me to do the things it's actually designed to do? Is taking all these synthetic medications doing that for me, or is it making me worse? But I think people aren't even getting curious around that or questioning that. They're so stuck in the system that perhaps they've lost the ability to maintain that level of curiosity within their own lives.
Well, I'm hoping that's what we can re-inspire, because I know, like, my job in the military was a pretty full-on job, and I need to know my job really well, and I needed to know the guys around me really well. And if I understood the mechanics behind what I was doing, then I excelled at that. And I think that's the same as what we're trying to do here with the self-agency, is understand the mechanics of the body first, understand that we're cellular beings that have cells that need to communicate. We need oxygen to do those certain things, with the right nutrition in there to activate certain things and build certain things. And that's really what we're trying to focus on, because I think once we can explain that core, then you're going to make the choice, like I have, even through my journey, is now I reach for the things that are more positive because I know they're going to have a positive impact, rather than blocking out anything and going for the things that are going to cause more damage. And it's nearly like you just got to tip that scale the right way, and then you can start look at healing. Otherwise, we're just going to sit in it and continue to drink ourselves into a stupor.
Yeah. I call it sit in the shit.
Mm.
And also learning, which is a really tricky piece. I'd love you to talk into it if this is something that you've experienced, that actually discomfort, as shitty as it is actually something that is good, because we need to feel discomfort in order to grow through it. And when you're deep in that hole and it's dark and you're feeling that discomfort, that isn't an easy thing to hear. But I guess it's like building those support networks around you where you've got that hand reaching in or that bit of light up there where you can go, I can sit here and I know that I'm going to be able to get through it.
Yeah, and I mean, I've got a lot of regret that it took me so long to realize that. And I was in a role where we were taught that pain was weakness leaving the body. So that's the kind of ethos that you take in everything. And once you get things like nerve pain taking over, you then take modalities to suppress it and continue to suppress it so you can continue to move. And that's where I started on things like synthetic opiates and stuff. And obviously they're good at the start and they wear down, but that that kind of addiction that starts at that kind of strives you to instantly reach for dopamine to kill the pain and kill the darkness and everything else. And it's a very, very hard hole to get out of. And it's not without other people jumping in there with you and experiencing that with you to help you build that back out again. And I mean, the only reason I'm still alive is because of the humans around me. And I've done my best to keep some of the humans around me alive when they've been at their worst as well.
Yeah.
But I think it's definitely something that we do need to kind of realize a little bit more, that there are ladders to get out of there, but it's very difficult to build out. And I don't think for a lot of people, and I had this conversation this morning with one of the lads, and he's been on the medication for 20 years. 20 years ago, he got out, drugged up. He's lost all his teeth because he had dental, and each time he had a toothache, they found that was worth 10 grand a tooth or something like that. Again, I might not have the numbers right, but basically he's now just been awarded to be able to get his teeth back, which is an incredible, massive thing for this lad.
That's great. Yeah.
But he, again, sitting in that pain that you're in after years on these drugs that are just blocking, it's very, very hard, but not impossible to rebuild that nervous system.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm kind of excited about a lot of the new modalities that we've got. They're platforms for this, and understanding a balanced amount of medicinal cannabis and how you might be able to see a doctor to get that to benefit that platform to stand off, or how to utilize things like psilocybin, MDMA as they become more available, how to use them as platforms to be able to build on, and even nutrition, understanding how to build up a platform of nutrition to rebuild parts of you that you can then regulate these things and bring some balance and order back. I think that's providing a lot of hope to a lot of people that are stuck in the shit, that can't see a way out, and see other people doing it without even knowing how they could possibly do it. Because I've been there myself a number of times where they go, it's impossible. There is no way, because when your brain retreats and you're sitting in it, you can't think to the parts to think you out of it. That's why you're
Yeah.
in. It's literally like inflammation. Your brain's
Mm.
on fire. And how do you expect to get out of that when you're sitting in the fire? So,
Yeah.
and we can see this now with brain scans as well. So we're working with the guys up in Queensland that have MRI technology that is able to scan a brain for about 5 minutes, and then it runs it through, because it's picking up an inconceivable amount of data in that time. You can imagine there's a lot of activity in the brain over that 5 minutes. And it's using algorithms now to build those structures so you can literally see the networks and the spine as well.
Oh, that is fascinating.
Yeah, and this is what we're looking at for traumatic brain injuries and PTSD, because
Yeah.
you can see the trauma and it looks like inflammation. And it happens to be that a lot of these modalities, if you excite or relax those areas, then you kind of balance out what the blood flow is, and then that provides balance to that thing. I think the brain of more of an organ now than a mystery box. It's
Yeah.
like it's been a mystery box for ages, but it turns out it's an organ. It pumps like a heart. It's pumping blood through it to be able to communicate. And when it becomes inflamed, it goes into kind of that fight or flight mode. It goes into that mode to protect itself. And often some of us, it gets stuck in there for a long time, and it's very hard to bring it back out. But again, these new modalities are providing us platforms to be able to do that. So it's exciting.
Oh, it's so exciting. All of this is, I love chatting to you. And I mean, there's two things I want to talk into here that you've touched on is that when you mentioned in your job, when you were in defense, is like you did your job, but you also needed to know all the jobs of everyone around you. I think then of the body, and I think then of how you just spoke into the brain, right? The brain being this amazing organ. My belief is we have three brains in our body. We have this amazing one up here, we have our heart, and we have our gut. So if we know about those three miracle workers around our body and the vagus nerve that joins all of them together, is that's we can associate that back with our job in the military, where we were high performing and we were knowing all of the roles. Learn that about your own body. It's inside you. It's the medicine that you actually need, and you have it with you at all times. You're born with it, you leave this earth plane with it. So, oh, you've just sent me on this like passionate rant.
No, I love it. And that it really, my discovery into that was through cannabis and through medicinal cannabis, because understanding how that interacted with my body. And I wasn't just going out trying anything. I was doing a lot of research. I got hooked up with Weeded Warrior back in the day, who'd brought a lot of research over from the States. In fact, Sue Sisley was up in Brisbane on the weekend, and she's one of University of Arizona's top researchers in a lot of this stuff. And I learned then about the endocannabinoid system, which is the system that cannabinoids interact with. And it turns out we've got our own endogenous cannabinoids, things like anandamide, which is what all of us hit when we get our runner's high. And these cannabinoids help our body talk, so our organs are able to communicate between each other to provide homeostasis. And it's through that platform for me, I experienced where I was able to literally have a smoke of some stuff. And this was back in the day before we actually got it legally through DVA.
Yeah.
I'd have a smoke, and I was still on a lot of cocktail of polypharmacy then. But it was nearly like when I'd have a little bit, it was as if I'd be able to peek out through the veil and I could see my family again. I could go outside and look around outside, and then it would fade off, and I'd go back into this hellscape that I was trapped inside of my brain.
Mm.
And over time, those periods of coming out got bigger and better. And that's kind of where I feel I'm now. Now I'm out of that veil. I'm able to function out that. But I know, because it does happen to me. If I go off my diet and I go off my routine and I start to get inflamed again, that inflammation starts with clouding. And then it's like my brain starts to retreat again. And I get trapped back in those dark holes and I can't see light. It's absolutely like terrifying when it happens. But understanding that brain injury and how, again, treating my gut, I had to do my gut first. I had to put a lot of good stuff in my stomach so I could start absorbing stuff again. And without getting too gross, it's like 2 years on Naproxen 1000s, which we used to pop like SF candy. That ate away my stomach line. I was literally vomiting blood and had blood coming on both ends because my gut wall was nearly gone from the suppression that causes on mucus. because it doesn't allow your body to produce mucus. So the acid in my stomach ate through the gut lining, and I was ulcerated to the crap house. But again, when I went back to the doctor, he just gave me more drugs to counteract it. But I had to
It's a
literally
vicious
rebuild.
circle, isn't it?
It's insane. It really is insane. But it was these other modalities and plant medicines that I was taking for my stomach. And a really good doctor put me on this mix of ultimate fiber, which is bloody disgusting. It's like 20 different herbs and roots and barks, and it smells like poison when you smell it. So you know it's got to be good. And you put it in the water, put the water in and stir it, and you got to drink it quick because it starts to set.
Yeah,
Like
I've had one.
oh man, that's incredible.
You got to
But
scull it so fast, and as you're at the end of sculling it, it starts to like harden, like congeal in your
yeah,
throat. You're like, "Ooh."
yeah, not pleasant, but worth it. I did that for a
Oh,
couple of months,
100%.
and it rebuilt my stomach lining so I could actually eat again. At
Yeah.
that point too, when I'd come off all the drugs over a couple of years, I went from like I was probably 80, 90 kilos average while I was in, ballooned out to 117 kilos on all the drugs and all the crap food. And then when I went off the drugs, I dropped down to 63 kilos.
Whoa,
I was emancipated
that's
because
significant.
I could not, food was running straight through me. There was nothing left in me to actually absorb the nutrients. So I had to fully build up my gut lining to be able to do that as well. And now I'm sitting at some kind of normal weight again.
Yeah.
But I need to maintain that balance of all these things to keep that thing in order.
Yeah.
But you're right,
And
it's connection between the organs. It's important.
absolutely, mind, body, soul. Have you enjoyed the process of learning more about your physical body?
Oh, yeah, not all of it. It's been pretty horrifying for a lot of it. But what I enjoy is having little wins and then seeing other people achieve those wins is incredible. And then when I have conversations with some of the doctors and the researchers that are doing that, and they're relating in that same mode, that's the stuff I really enjoy. Like that is incredible. And the fact that I've been able to reconnect with my family again, because I
Heck
lost my
yes, that's
family through
huge.
this. And now
Huge.
I've got a great relationship with my two daughters. I've got a good relationship with my ex, which is amazing too, because she went through hell with what I went through as well. But we've been able to maintain that. And I give that credit to the medicines that I'm on that have allowed me to not stay in anger and distress, but actually move forward for a lot of these things.
And to give you that awareness too, like, and I think these sorts of medicines that we both use is you kind of take on a bit of accountability and you look at some of your own patterns and your own processes, and that's part of that study of the self. And then you're like, oh shit, it was me. And
Yep.
then you have the conversations that you perhaps in the past would have avoided, like the plague, where you're like, hey, look, I just want to talk about this.
Yeah, and I definitely noticed that, especially using medications with THC on that reflection. It's one of the best mirrors that you can pretty much take regularly to be able to reflect on what's happening. And it does, it kicks your ass every time. It's like you'll know then. And it's a lot of the little habits and the things you get into when you're in those negative states. You really need those times to be able to meditate and reflect to be able to see that. And
Yeah.
again, also observing how other people are reacting around you too. It kind of heightens your ability to see that, and it's often other people that'll notice it when you kind of start to go afray. It's the other people in your life that will pretty much let you know that.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think using those
Kids are
things
great
and
at it.
oh god, yeah, absolutely. But I
They just
think it's
call you on
important.
it.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's important too that like it's meditation for me is what's helped these things work. And it's not just taking the medicine as a drug to get away from or anything.
Yeah.
My meditative practices, and it wasn't until I listened to the audio book from Amish Jha. So she was the neuroscientist that was tasked with figuring out what attention was. Through her findings, now they're teaching US military and special operations dudes how to meditate. And I think they're adopting some of the practices in our military now as well. That gave me a clearer picture of what I was trying to achieve in those states instead of just going empty your mind. It was more about exercising the point of going back to your breathing, which is what kind of made it trigger, and then utilizing that again, using those other things as a platform to be able to do that. It's been kind of a superpower.
I love that you just spoke into that. And I think so far that is probably the most powerful message for people. And I'd love to go to a place that not many people are talking about, which is the flip side of what you're doing is those that perhaps within the veteran space who have been given these scripts for these medicinal cannabises that aren't doing the mind-body connection work behind it, that aren't connecting to themselves, and they're simply using it as a suppressant and perhaps overdoing it. Have you seen some of this in your space? Because I most certainly have in mine.
No, and I think I've seen a lot of it. And I was at a point for a while because I was on the medicinal cannabis pretty early in the piece, and I was lucky enough to have a huge amount of support from other veterans when I got onto it. But the way I was introduced to it was literally a psychiatrist sliding a card across the table saying, I can't say anything to you, but maybe look these guys up. I shit you not. But because I had that platform to get into it, I still stumbled. Like I still had to figure out the hard way a lot of the ways on how to use it. I started with a lot of high THC, try to escape and everything else because I didn't know where I was going with it. But through those, I was able to learn a lot from other people. Like today, I'm on very high CBD cannabis with very low THC, but I still utilize the THC. It's important that for me that those two are in there together. But I am seeing a lot of people now, a lot of doctors that don't even know what THC does. They've just been told that this is available now, and they're literally prescribing the highest amount of THC that you can get. 25, 30% THC is insane.
Yeah.
Like that was never available. Like when we were younger, even the weed that was around then might have been 12% or something. And before then it was like 6%. And now we've got these mutant strains of stuff that has this huge spike without taking into account there's like over 100 other cannabinoids in that plant that are therapeutic. And if you're able to bring that THC down to a level where it's balanced out with CBD and all these other amazing cannabinoids, you're then back to the original medicine. And I don't even like the term alternative medicine. It's an original medicine. This has been around for longer than we have. And I think it's important that, and we've been speaking to DVA about this for a long time and to other people about providing education and awareness, because we've now been gifted a plant medicine that has the capability of doing an incredible amount of things for neurological disorders, for pain, for even cancer without saying cancer. There's a lot of things that this can help with. Why aren't we getting the education on the endocannabinoid system? Because as soon as you can understand what that system's doing, the advice I had when I went onto it, again, high CBD balanced out with THC, a high amount of omega-3 on it as well, because that boosts that same signal, that same system. And then that led me to start looking at nutrition. And then I was able to take that next step. Cannabis isn't the solution, it's a platform. And if you're able to utilize that as a platform, it's great. But if you're stuck on the high THC, it's going to be good for a little while, but it's like anything else, the goodness wears off and then you start caving again.
Oh, pure gold. I love this. And that education piece is very much needed. I don't know how they're going to do it, but it definitely needs to be a way. And I know some people that initially go on it, they may not be in a space where they're able to do that sort of research yet. But I think it needs to be part of that, as we spoke into before, that integration piece of, hey, I'm taking this plant medicine for my own health and well-being. Let me learn more about myself as I go through the process.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it's the stigma, and it was for us down here. As soon as you mention it, people straight up heckles raise and you're talking about marijuana. And ironically, the stigma and the ignorance to it is causing it to get treated like marijuana when we need to delineate. Like and I asked this to a lot of the doctors up there when I was up at the conference. I was like, what's the difference between marijuana and medicinal cannabis? And I was expecting them to give me a big lecture on this is over here and this is over here, but nearly all of them said they're the same thing. It's how you use it. And that's the big difference. It's like you can either use it to escape or you can use it to benefit yourself and like start to rehabilitate. And that's what's inspired us to set up a center now where people can comfortably do it and access things. Because, I mean, you're getting a gift that can give you neuroplasticity and it can help you maintain and develop new habits. So why not do this as a community? Why not do this as a family as well? And again, demystify it and destigmatize it for the family. I'm not talking about ripping bongs. I'm talking about like dropping some oil in your coffee. Yeah. Like you can be very covert about how you're utilizing it. You don't have to be openly smoking joints or anything like that. It's in oil form now. or you can get a medical vaporizer. Like there's a lot of ways that you can do this, but again, without the education, it's near impossible for people to find this out. And cannabis, under the federal law, we can't talk about it. So if I was to post something about cannabis now to say, hey, utilize it like this, it won't make it through any of the social media. So we're really struggling to let people know about this.
Got to be a boots on the ground approach.
It is. And I think, again, some of these restrictions are starting to lift now with social media and about being able to talk about things a little bit more openly. And that's where we're hoping to, this is what we spoke to the university about, is about demystifying it a little bit to help people have better access to understanding the endocannabinoid system. Because again, once you understand that system, then you know to go and ask for the right things to help boost it, rather than just going, don't know what I'm doing, but I've got pain, can you give me stuff? I
love that. Demystifying, using it as a platform, being self-educated, and just, moving forward in life. I only see positives here.
No, we need more of them. I think we're starting to see it now. Like I said, there's a lot more people that are getting into a position now where they are finding out like better ways to rehabilitate. And the work that you're doing, speaking to people, is, again, that's game changer. It's community connection. It's having conversations with people with lived experience. And I think that's our way ahead. Yeah, the conversations need to happen, and there needs to be more of them. And that common thread through all of this is we're stronger together, and for frig's sakes, you're not alone. 100%. So before we go, I would love to hear your biggest takeaway from this conference that you went to on the weekend. What did you really love about it, and did you meet some amazing people? Man, I've met some incredible people, incredible researchers, and to pick one is hard, but I'll say Professor Ian Mick, can't remember the last name, but I posted about him nearly straight away. He's the lead researcher for Lambert Institute, the head of therapeutics in cannabis and plant medicines. And to hear him speak on the research that they're doing was eye-watering. It was absolutely insane. And we've been able to sit down with him and actually get that on film. So we are looking to start to put some of those little bits out to actually talk out about what they're finding. But one of the interesting ones he spoke about at the end was DMT, saying how our national emblem has this incredible plant medicine in it that they're now doing a lot of therapeutics research on. But again, it's just inspiring to see that there's some incredible researchers that don't look at the stigma, they're looking at the medicine now. And
how can we change things? What can we learn? Yeah.
And we're light years behind other countries, but to see the forward-thinking unis now and what they're doing, and they're combining their knowledge with other countries. And I'll say one other one was, again, it wasn't really at this conference, but we spoke to one of the leads in hyperbaric medicine in Australia. And we've now got one of the doctors up in Queensland Way again. Queensland's, again, doing some incredible things. They're doing a PhD in PTSD and hyperbaric medicine.
Oh, awesome.
Which is going to be one of the first, or the first that we know of in Australia too. So that's going to be our first injection into getting some really good Australian-led clinical research on these modalities, because I think that's really going to be one of the big game changers.
Heck yes, I've read so much about it. That's that HBOT, is that one?
It is, and it's done at a higher rate than the ones that, so a lot of people access low-level hyperbaric at about 1.5 bar, maybe 1.7. The Israelis and the Americans have figured out that once you punch it up to around 2 bar and you go from 100% oxygen back to normal levels of oxygen, you induce this paradox, this hypoxic paradox, where your body produces stem cells. And they're utilizing this treatment now. And I'm not talking about just some stem cells. This is a flood of stem cells. And they're doing research now to regrow spinal cords or reattach spinal cords, regrow brain, not regrow, but reestablish connections in brain tissue, regenerate. And a really good example of that, not only Australian with our local lad here that's been doing the treatment, but Jeremy Renner, the Hawkeye lad from Avengers. He got run over by a snowplow. And within 7 months, over 30 bones in his body broken, crushed skull, eyeball hanging out. He went straight into emergency surgery, ironically a similar surgery level to what we were getting overseas in Afghanistan in those surgical teams. getting mad surgery. He went straight into hyperbaric medicine, good nutrition, physiotherapy. 7 months later, he's walking, talking, and moving around like nothing happened.
Proof's in it.
Yeah, and again, Disney actually covered this. There's a documentary on it, but not one mention of the modalities he used. It just made him look like a good old superhero.
Well, that is Disney. We won't go there in this episode.
No.
But until we can access these beautiful modalities, we've got the power of the breath right at our fingertips, and the power of our human breath that we were gifted at birth can help us to access some of these on some sort of level. So, we've got some tools already there to just connect into until we're exploring further down the path into these. And Australia, come on, let us at them.
Absolutely. It's time.
All right. So before we farewell our guests, and what a wonderful guest you've been, if anyone was curious on anything you've spoken about today and they want to explore down this path further, what is one piece of advice that you have for those that are sort of peeping in the door wanting to know more?
Look, jump on our website, propatria.com.au. Our news site, our news page is probably the best place for us to post our updates on. But if you or anyone you know are needing some support, please reach out to us. If we can't directly help you, we'll most certainly put you in touch with someone that can kind of guide you in the right direction. But we still need supports. We're still raising funds to be able to do this. We've done this quite independently until this point. And again, that DVA chunk of funding is our first one. But look out for your mates if you know other people that are hurting as well, especially with a better understanding of traumatic brain injuries now. So yeah, please jump on our website, follow us, support us where you can, and get involved if you can. And if we can help you, we will.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, your knowledge, and just being here with us today. And I'm sure in the future we'll have you back on this podcast to talk more into the beautiful advances we've had in allowing these medicines to go forth here in Australia. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Katie. Legend.
Right. Katie out.